My earliest recollection of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur goes back to when I was about 8. I lived in Brighton, where I was born and brought up until the age of 10. This particular year, I suppose it would have been about 1955, was memorable for me because for the first time in my life I was in the shul choir. A man called Mr. Louis Shute, who I found out many years later was a very famous choir master. He'd actually been the choir master of the great synagogue in its heyday. He came down to Brighton to organise a choir in the beautiful Middle Street Shul, where we used to go every Shabbat. And it was in that choir that I first learned melodies that have stayed with me to this very day. I still recall a melody to the Al Chatoim we sang in Brighton that I've never heard anywhere else. The Chazan was Beryl Bronstein. He taught me in Cheder, so I knew him quite well. Beryl Bronstein was a light baritone and a very good Chazan. I recall spending a Shabbat in Brighton when I was about 21. Reverend Bronstein was so delighted to see me, he insisted that I daven Musaf. When I came to the new West End synagogue as the rabbi, the choir very generously allowed me to join in and sing with them, although I actually never attended rehearsals. But that was what I call a proper shul choir. It was conducted by the late Elliot Berman, Zichrono Livracha, who knew shul services like the back of his hand. And its members were men utterly steeped in shul music, some of whom I'm delighted to say sing in the cantorials today. Though I've never been an official member of a choir, I've had the pleasure, and sometimes not such a pleasure, of singing as chazan with many shul choirs, some of whom were very good indeed. When I was a student at Jews College in the 1960s, every major congregation had a chazan and choir. In those days it was the practice that a shul would contact the college when their chazan was going on holiday, and they would get one of the boys in the chazanut class to officiate. I davened in most of the large shuls in London in those years, and the choir was often there the week that I officiated. Interestingly, and probably not surprisingly, the quality of the choir was not related in any way to whether the choristers were being paid or not. We had an amateur choir in Kenton that was started by Gerald Nepler, Zichrono Livracha, and taken over by Stephen Fagan, and that choir had a really fine repertoire and was an amazing choir. It's very sad that there's hardly a shul left in this country that has a regular choir. The only one that I know of consists of professional singers who know nothing about shul music, and they merely sing the dots on the page. Music has always been a major component of Jewish worship. In temple times, the Levites were responsible for the orchestra and the choir that played and sang during the daily services. And even though, as a sign of our mourning for the destruction of the temple, the rabbis forbade playing music in our religious services, apart from weddings that is, singing was always encouraged. We're shortly to hear a very beautiful Selichot service to usher in the days of repentance. In these unusual times, I'm sure it will invoke lovely memories and also set the mood perfectly for the days ahead. The major piyut of this first service of the season is B'motzoi Menucha, when we sing, "At the outgoing of the Shabbat, when we first approach you, the one who dwells amidst praises, incline your ear from on high, and listen to the song and the prayers." We don't know who composed this poem. Starting from the second verse, its phrases are written in alphabetical order, which actually most people don't notice. What to me is most striking about this pismon is the refrain Lishma el harina ve'el hatfilah. We ask God to listen to our song and to our prayer. This phrase is taken from the long prayer which King Solomon uttered at the dedication of the temple, when he asked God, "Turn to the prayer of your servant and to his supplication, O Lord my God, and listen to the song and to the prayer which your servant prays before you today. Note the order of the words. Listen to our song and our prayer. We ask God to listen to the words we sing first, those words of a prayerful nature, and then we ask him to listen to the words we say. I don't believe that King Solomon said this by chance. There's a beautiful Kabbalistic concept. There are certain places in the highest heavens that open only to music. Music can do things to the soul that nothing else can achieve. It can soothe the mind and it can excite the senses. It can calm the animated and it can stir up the passions. It can be more efficacious than a powerful drug. When we sing or listen to a beautiful melody that perfectly fits meaningful words, it can open our hearts to those words in a way that no amount of merely reading them could. For a Jew to pray without melody is inconceivable. The rabbis were well aware of its importance and its power when they forbade the mere reading of our holy scriptures, and they insisted that they be chanted. And they characterized anyone who reads our holy books with beautiful melody as having milk and honey under his tongue. As we listen to these melodies, some old and some new, sung with understanding, with feeling, I pray it will put us in the mood to approach these coming high holidays, as difficult as they will be for us all this year, in the appropriate spirit to pray sincerely to the Almighty. My prayer for you is that we all be granted a healthy, happy and peaceful year, together with all our loved ones and all of Israel.
It is an Ashkenazi tradition to commence the High Holy Day season with a midnight cantorial and choral Selichot penitential prayers service. This takes place on a Shabbat night shortly before Rosh Hashanah. The London Cantorial Singers have arranged choral Selichot services every year since 2001. However, this year, marred by the COVID-19 pandemic, we have assembled a choral program to be viewed online, and we warmly welcome you to it this year. Our first selection is Lachuna Ranana. O come, let us sing unto the Lord, let us approach his presence, starting with a quotation from Psalm 98. This sets the tone of a mix of heartfelt supplication and leveraging the joy and confidence derived from the departing Sabbath to be assured that our prayers will be answered. This setting is by Joseph Weiser, a Ukrainian cantor-composer who emigrated to America in 1914. The soloist is cantor David Shine, with solos by Stanley Warren, bass, and David Druce, baritone.
Lachol
next item is Kel Melech Yoshev, Almighty King who sits upon his throne of mercy, a frequent refrain during the High Holy Days. This arrangement is by Belarusian-American choir master Zavel Zilberts. The soloist is Cantor Henry Black, with solo by Stanley Warren.
El Melech Yoshev al Kisei Rachamim.
זכה לנו היום בריא 13 כמו שהודעת לענב מקדם וירד השם ויקרא בשם השם.
Progressing through the Selichot service, we arrive at the start of the Pismon and the hymn B'motzei El Menucho, on the outgoing of the Sabbath. Here the choir turns to the music of Oscar Julius, a popular mid-20th century New York choir master. The soloist is Cantor David Shine. We now move to one of the most popular melodies of the Selichot liturgy, a traditional setting of the Keil Melech Yoshev prayer. The choir will sing this utilizing an arrangement by their own musical director, Alan Friedman. The soloists are the Reverend Cantor David Rohn, with solos by our own young soloist, Rafi Sandford.
Ma
The next piece is Tvienu, O Bring Us to Thy Holy Mountain, based upon themes from the prophet Isaiah. The music was composed by East European American cantor Joshua Lind, and our soloists tonight are cantor David Shine and Shmuel Korn. No London Cantorial Singers Selichot service would be complete without a composition by the 19th century German master composer Lewandowski. Accordingly, you will now hear his Tevo lefanecha, Let Our Prayer Come Before Thee. Our next item is Shomer Yisrael, Guardian of Israel, a classical composition by the Russian-English musician Samuel Ullman. This recording was taken from the choir's visit to Berlin in 2015 as part of the annual Louis Lewandowski Festival. The soloist is Reverend Cantor David Rohn. Our final selection is a traditional setting of the closing hymn, Adon Olam, Master of the Universe. This recording was taken from the choir's Wembley Selichot service when cantor David Weinbach came over from Israel to lead the prayers. On behalf of the choir, we wish you all a happy, healthy, and sweet New Year.